All right, so this month's book is Batman: The Black Mirror by Scott Snyder, Jock, and Francesco Francavilla. Uh, I guess my score would be a 9 out of 10. I really loved it. I loved the first time I read it. Loved it this time. The story is great. I love the art, specifically Francesco. Uh, and yeah, I really just enjoyed reading it. The noir and real dark, twisted stuff that they went into. Not as twisted as the last month's, but still really good. Uh, Go to Pat.
Yes, I am going. I'll start with a 7.5, and I think there's a lot of room to go up after we discussed it. I think it's one of the better Batman stories I've read. Like Alex, I think I like Francisco's art better than Jock's. Um, yeah, we'll start from there. I'm picking Juniper. Why don't you go?
It's been a minute. I thought the worst thing about this book was going to be Simpson's mononym Jock, but overall, I hated the book, hated the art, hated the story. A lot of things took me out all the time. And I'm going to give it a 2.5. It's been a while since I really got to hate on a book, so like I do appreciate that. That's why it gets the extra 0.5.
This is going to be an interesting discussion tonight.
Mikkel?
Oh, that's me, I guess, right? Okay, I give the book about, I would say an 8, but mostly because of the story and Francesco's art. Wait, is it Francesco or Francesca?
I think Francisco.
Francisco. Anyway, I love his art, and I actually hate Jock's art. Like, I used to like Jock, but I think he's almost like a good storyboard artist, where he has a good sense of design and storytelling, but there's no one panel that I can look at and enjoy on its own. I just think he's really rushed and sloppy. But anyway, the other artist I think is great, and this writer Scott Snyder is what brought me back to Batman after maybe I don't know how many years, but I wasn't reading Batman for a long time. So I really like the story. I do wish it was Bruce Wayne because I prefer him as Batman, but otherwise, I thought it was really good. And I think Snyder, he probably peaked with this and Court of Owls, and the rest of his stuff is not nearly as good, but this was really good, so I recommend it for sure. And then I'll pick Mike Prime.
Oh, okay. Well, unfortunately, I only got probably about 2/3 of the way through the book. But what I read, I enjoyed. I probably would give it maybe 7.5, an 8, something like that. I found it really refreshing to have Dick Grayson as Batman, and that it was just different and for a Batman story. And I really enjoyed the noir aspects of it and the very grounded aspects of the story. So, yeah. And I will select Oliver.
Hello, everyone. So I enjoyed this book. I liked it a lot. I have not read a whole lot of Batman stuff, a little bit. So I thought it was kind of interesting, having Batman not be Bruce Wayne. I really enjoyed it. I think it kind of suffers a little bit from some of the issues I have sometimes with like serialized comic books being sort of condensed into a singular volume where it kind of feels a little sort of meandering and disconnected. I got a little bit of that here, but I mean, once it kind of gets to where it's going, I think it's really good. I think my favorite is kind of right around the midsection with the stuff with the sun, where you're kind of like not totally sure yet if this dude is like a serial killer or if he's just like a weirdo that's like finally taking care of himself. I liked that tension. I almost wish they didn't resolve it in a way. But I mean, overall, I really liked it. I think it's probably like a 8.5 for me. So, Sean.
Yeah, I thought the beginning was kind of weak, but it definitely picked up a lot of steam for me. The weakest part of the book for me was Batman. I preferred everything with Gordon and that whole main plot line. But I would give it an 8. And I read the second half in black and white, and I didn't really like it so much. I prefer because it was very stark black and white. There wasn't that much shading. But, Oliver, or I mean Carlos.
This is the first for me. I did not read the book, so I am interested in seeing how I'm actually going to contribute. I am reading it right now, so maybe I'll finish it by the end and can update my score. I think that's everybody, right?
Keith is a human again, so he should say something.
Oh, okay, Keith.
Yeah, we read Scott Snyder a couple times, and hasn't been my favorite. And yeah, this is it's some of his stuff has been okay, but I was not the biggest fan of this book, and also it's kind of surprised because I'm a fan of Jock's work, but I was kind of excited to see him do a book, and the other artists I felt did a much better job. A lot of his stuff is just, his action sequences I thought were hard to follow, but yeah, no, just the conceit that this guy's a psychopath and that automatically makes him a bad guy. There's a lot of psychopaths in this world, and they're not all bad people.
Mostly lawyers.
I run into a lot in my legal profession. I have worked for a number, and they're not, murderers. It's like about 10% of the population is psychopathic or sociopathic, and
Is that true?
yeah.
I may need like a definition lesson on like who is a good sociopath.
Actually, neither of those terms are used. The DSM-5 replaced it with antisocial personality disorder, which I think predated this book even. Oh, when did the switch over hit?
No, specifically in the book.
They use ASPD in the book.
Oh,
That term was used once.
Yeah.
Oh, what is that?
Sorry, guys, that just autoplayed on my Facebook. I didn't know that was me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
I thought I could somehow done that with my mind. Like beaming in to yell at me. But yeah, no, it's I've dealt with people who are clearly psychopaths, and they're not out there murdering people. So the big twist story.
I assume it's a sliding scale, right?
Right, and
The
I mean,
degrees.
you don't have to be a psychopath to murder people. In fact, most psychopaths don't murder people. They get more attention because they can be more dramatic or gruesome, I guess. But yeah, really, but yeah, Lucy's here as well.
Do you want me to try that or no?
Yeah. Oh no, I want you here to watch me and play with the feather toy. You're here to babysit my cat.
They're the cutest.
So I don't want to get off on a tangent, Keith, but can you just give us? You said that you could tell they're a psychopath. What is it about them that you can tell that they're a psychopath?
Oh, no empathy.
No empathy, and the rules don't apply to them.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those is a psychopath, one of those is a sociopath. That's why they stopped using the two different terms. But he also describes James as both in this book, and they do have different meanings. But
It's super interesting to read about because there's like a subreddit about people who have been diagnosed as psychopaths, and they just talk about how they kind of just like they're trying to be regular people, and they just kind of mask every day, and they have like families and stuff, and they just kind of try to mirror normal people. It's interesting.
yeah.
Is there a certain percentage of people that tend towards certain jobs, or like CEOs maybe? I don't know.
Doctor.
Yeah, God complex. Any jobs with God complex. I mean, yes, CEO is a common one. They do tend to rise in ranks in professional organizations because all the things we don't like about them, the backstab and cutthroat and
no sense of remorse.
yeah, that's perfect description. But yeah, I also lived in the co-ops, which was also in college, which was a magnet for
That's how you learned your Psych 101 skills.
yeah, exactly. It was all sorts of people who
God's mistakes.
no, I wouldn't say that, but yeah. So anyhow, the central conceit of the book that he's going to turn everyone into a psychopath is like, okay, but you know, there's more to it to make people, you know, serial killers. You know, it's not just.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, regardless of whether they're going to be serial killers or not, I mean, it seems like a thing that you don't want to be done to children, right?
Right. I agree.
So-
Unless you want your children to be successful in business, there's going to be a lot of wealth coming into Gotham in 2 years.
I guess, but I mean,
experiment than anything else.
But yeah, I felt like some of the stuff, you know, one of the things was like, you know, there's the woman who's the daughter of the guy who killed Dick Grayson's, or not Dick Grayson.
yes, Dick Grayson.
Yeah, Dick Grayson's parents.
Oh,
And it's like, yeah, she lied to him, but it's like also, you know, she's just as much of a vigilante as he is. And I felt like there was more there. And the book passed over it. You know, it felt like there were a number of opportunities where it was like, I'd be more interested in this than what's actually going on. Like, you know, some of these side routes in it. So yeah, I give it a 5. That's again, it was. But yeah, the other artist, we saw him. He did the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Oh,
I
what?
thought his artwork was really
oh,
good.
what?
It is the same guy, right?
Donate.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, okay.
But anyhow, that's my score. There's nobody else, right? I begged you several times, and you wouldn't say.
I don't know what to
Lucy,
do.
what's your score?
I read a lot of Batman, and then I haven't read Batman in a while. This is the first Batman I've read in a while. I haven't read a lot of Scott Snyder. So it's interesting to read a Scott Snyder story. And I don't think I've read any Dick as Batman stories either, or I haven't read a lot of. So it's like a mix of new and old for me.
I don't even know what they come from.
I'm still trying to figure out how I would rate it.
Don't ask me. Don't ask me.
It's above average. It's not my favorite Batman story.
Ask me though.
Maybe I'll change my mind the more I think about it. Because it has some loose threads that could have been more nicely tied up. So yeah, I want to hear what people say. That's the main thing. I just want
This is not the same artist as Sabrina, just to
Oh,
tie that off. Sorry.
Oh, I
Sorry.
Francesco more than Jock by like a long shot.
Oh yeah, this guy did something for Archie. Oh no, he did Archie, not Sabrina, right?
We have one of those zombie ones.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Afterlife. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Sorry, I read both. After we read Sabrina, I read Afterlife with Archie.
So I think I like Batman in like a general way, but I want to hear from Alex, like to calibrate my measurement. Like what to you makes this like a standout Batman story? Like, because to me, when I think like what's my favorite Batman story, I think it's still Arkham Asylum. But Alex, what makes this like a good Batman story? You.
I think it was the first Batman story I read that actually dealt with Batman and not against his villains, like that. Like the Killing Joke or the Manual Ass were all about the Joker and were all about his villains. This one actually focused on Batman, or a Batman, Dick Grayson, and I thought it was just great noir, great art, and I think this is probably one of the earliest Batman stories I read, and so it came down to one of my favorites.
All right.
When did this come out?
I think 2010.
Are you wearing shades for reals, or is that a filter?
It's a filter.
Okay. He's wearing sunglasses at night. Ah,
Maybe he's just
Which
cool.
is a reference to the comic.
Yeah, he's cool.
Super dangerous. So yeah, we can all agree, or most of us agree, that the Francesco is the better artist of the two.
Hmm.
Any specific pages or panels that stand out to you? Anyone?
When they're in the forest.
Man, as soon as the switch happened, I was like, oh hell yeah.
Like
It was
this
solid.
one. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna turn my thing off so you can see it. Because my screen is getting in the way.
Now move around. Move around.
This mine's in black and white. I'm sorry. But like that page with his face. I just love how creepy that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah, I liked Francisco definitely more, but for me it was more addition by subtraction. I definitely thought his pages were definitely the best ones. His sense of paneling was a lot better than Jock's, I thought. Jock tried to do a lot of things that he probably thought were really cool with the panels, but I found them really, really messy.
I feel like Jock is a good designer or like
Mhm.
printmaker. He's not as strong as a storyteller. I think,
Dad,
in
look
my
at my
opinion.
phone. Not this. Right? Is that what you want?
Felt that Jock's sort of cityscape drawings were his better pages, and Francesco's had that better noir feel, which fit the book more. I felt.
Yeah. This one where you got like half the face.
Yes.
And then the other one. And
I love that page so much because, like, how would you draw somebody driving and thinking at the same time, kind of going over their past? And I thought he did such a good job with that 2-page spread. That was so clever.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like that one. And then like this whole story, the one where he's got the key going across, and just like the going into the woods when she disappears. Yeah, no, it's whereas like Jack's stories, I would read it and then I would have to go back and be like, did I miss something? I remember one point thinking that Dick Grayson was on a motorcycle after an action sequence, and then like having to go back and forth a couple times and be like, no, it's just kind of blurry drawing.
Oh, was he? Oh.
Yeah, like I said, I was kind of disappointed because I have seen his print work and some of his Dread stuff, and it was also just gory. I don't know. I didn't need that. I mean, some of his stuff with the guy being dismembered while he's alive, I was like, this is a bit much. Like,
Well, that was the first time you knew that he was a full-on serial killer.
Yeah, that was the big reveal.
yeah.
Because up to that point, I'm like, maybe he's not as bad as he seems. And then, nope.
Yeah, that would have been interesting if like he thought it was him the whole time and he had to prove his innocence. So it would have been kind of neat.
Is this the first story where James Gordon is the younger one is characterized as a killer?
As far
Is
as I
this
know,
Yeah, I think this is the first.
Well, no, I look. He
Is
did
this the
appear.
first story we've seen him in?
No, I looked him up. I think he appeared 1 or 2 times before this, but he was never a prominent character. But this is where I think this is where they made him a psychopath. Yeah. Or whatever you want to call him, serial killer. But I think this is the cool thing about a superhero like Batman who's been around 70 years. It's like, what else can you do that's different with him? And I think it's a great idea to introduce a brother or a new son for James Gordon, who's a psychopath. Like, if you're going to introduce someone who's a new villain, a new threat, what a better way to do it than make him a family member, right? I think that's just great, personally.
Well, it did make me think of, there's the Simpsons episode where there's the jazz musician player, and he's like, I had a guest spot on Cosby Show, and they're like, this is your grandpa, he's a jazz musician. It's like, we already have 4 grandpas and they're all jazz musicians. It's like, whenever they need a plot, they just come up with another relative that we haven't seen. It's like, I don't know. So it's a lot of comics, it feels like, have been like, oh, this is your relative that we've never mentioned before. They get one very intense arc and then they're not mentioned again.
Well, at least with Batman, they don't do that as much. Like, they just hit on the big names over and over again. Like Alex said earlier, a lot of the Batman comics, like, well, the later ones, I don't know what time frame you want to use, but like, a lot of them are mostly about the villains. Okay. Like, depending on what run you're reading, like, the runs I read were like early 90s, so it was a little bit different then. Those are the ones I'm most familiar with. But I mean, it's just mostly different Joker stories or different Catwoman stories, like a lot of the old ones. So it was a really clever way to bring a new villain about.
I mean, I'll say, unlike some other superheroes, they do kind of like the Batman family, where it's like, some of these superheroes, like, they have no families, whereas Batman, he has a son. I think his son is in this book, right?
Yeah, he's Damian.
We don't really see him.
He's
in
referenced.
Indigo.
Yeah.
Right, but Batman has like actual relationships, I guess. I don't know, it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of another. If you like it, you like it, but sometimes it feels like, if this person was so important, why are we just hearing about them now?
Well, yeah.
The nature of the genre.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's unfortunately that's the
that's
only
what it is.
way. Yeah, it's the only way. It's just like Doctor Who's been on for 50 years, and they reveal things that you're like, why didn't they mention that 50 years ago?
Yeah.
Because then I don't know. It's like there's no way to really
they
do it.
didn't.
Yeah.
Cut him a little slack, Keith.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the thing. So
right.
Yeah.
And his son.
Also, he was originally in Batman Year One in '87.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's what they think may have caused his illness.
Well, he kept mentioning that he fell, right? There was some head injury.
Being dropped from the bridge.
Right.
That's right. I forgot. Anyway. Can we talk about the story structure, like the flashing back and all that? I thought that was great.
Sure.
And like, well, I just thought it was like, I'm trying to think of going back to 2011. I know that Grant Morrison, he had been doing Batman for a while, but I think Scott Snyder, he'd really only done, I think, American Vampire, right? So he was kind of a horror writer. And,
and Swamp Thing.
And Swamp Thing, right. And
although that was the same time as the New 52.
Yeah.
This was right before New 52 when they rebooted everything. So
right. But I just think that, I mean, again, I think someone mentioned that they didn't like Scott Snyder's most of his stuff. And I do agree that his Batman got really tired after a while. But I think at this point, he was still at his peak. And I think he was much better than the average Batman writer of that time, at least. Like, he was doing stuff that no one else was doing, I don't think.
He did The Court of Owls, right?
Yes, that's probably his best stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Right after this, yeah. But I don't know. I really liked it. Like, to me, I'm watching this. I always think what would make a great movie. And I think this would be a really good, I don't want to say low stakes, but like a smaller scale Batman story, where the whole city's not being threatened with being blown up. This is a very small scale story, but it'd make a perfect Batman movie or TV show or something, I thought.
It'd be fun. Short series.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
Maybe they'll make a cartoon out of it.
Ooh, grimdark cartoons.
I did kind of like the idea of him using old Batman villain weapons, like repurposing them.
That was my least favorite part. Like
Well-
Batfinger. I was like, ooh.
Oh, I didn't like that. Yeah, that was a little bit too like James Bond. Like he's got a trick for everything.
Well, yeah, that's my least favorite
Did he have-
Batman trope.
Did he have the shark repellent in this? Did they pull that back?
There
I read
were no
something.
sharks.
There are no sharks. There was
There
a
was
killer doll.
Tiger
killer-
shark,
yeah.
quote unquote. That would I
Yeah.
would have been furious if that would have worked. I would have lost.
Yeah, no, I think he did. I don't know. I read something with Batman recently, and he pulled out the shark repellent, and it was like something that was classic, infamously on his belt, his utility belt. Oh, I think they referenced it in Harley Quinn.
Oh, okay.
The Adam West Batman.
That makes more sense.
So, but Juniper, I want to hear why you didn't like it.
How much time you got?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not. I have nowhere to go. So
Yeah, so
hit
there
me,
was a
hit
lot of,
us.
like, I found Jock's ability to draw faces non-existent. He used a lot of character reference, which is fine, but a lot of his source imagery was really bad, and just faces looked really, really awful. And I found like I mentioned earlier, I found his paneling pretty rough. And then there were a bunch of things that really took me out of the action super quickly. So there's a little scene where we're introduced to Harvey. He's like, I love classic music, and you have to listen to the AM stations, but the radio's set to FM. It's like a lot of attention to detail that's really not there. Or Tiger Shark, he looks a lot like the Red Hood from Batman Zero Year, also by Scott Snyder, which I thought was interesting, and like I wanted that tied in somehow, but it wasn't. Who has like the glass dome head instead of the scarf. And then I just found a lot of the issues to be really bad filler. Tiger Shark among them. The car guy was just like, he's really going to destroy like $1 billion worth of supercars, and like what, you buy like a $3 million supercar that's custom tricked out and you get a Glock in the trunk. It didn't work for me. And a lot of the dialogue was really, really cheesy and bad. And like there was a lot of exposition that didn't work for me. Like when Gordon was explaining who Zucco was to Dick Grayson, he was like, remember, he's the guy that killed your parents.
That was shit. That was garbage. I agree.
Like, I appreciate it as an audience member, but that was done really poorly. And like 2 pages later, they had a narration by Grayson who was like, Zucco, who killed my parents. And I'm like, that's fine. That's good. But like, I'm like,
I
why
love that his reaction was basically, "Oh shit, you're right. He did kill my
kill
parents."
my parents.
Fuck.
I was just like, there were lots of
That
things like
shit sucks, bro.
that just like really, really didn't make sense to me. And yeah, I like I said, I found the other artists pretty good. I was pretty happy with them, but I just found his art really took me out a lot. And yeah, there were just a lot of bad storytelling things. There was a lot that I liked about the story. I really liked the James Gordon Jr. series, but like also felt like it was like 3 issues too long. As pointed out there was the scene where Grayson's like, my family kept a map with pins in it, and then that told the same story like 6 issues later, and I was like, why do we have this filler? That's like a quick overview of what I didn't like about it. I stopped taking notes halfway through.
Are they working with like the Large Hadron Collider? Like, what crime
I know.
lab needs this giant equipment? It's like,
I got this 2-page spread to fill out, and I got to have it done by 5 o'clock. I'll draw big machines.
There's like Wayne text stuff. I don't know. It zoom and enhances. That's all you need.
Yeah.
That actually zoom enhances.
That was in this comic. I was like, oh yeah.
Oh, by the way, I got to point out, I think this was Grant Morrison's idea, but the whole concept of Bruce Wayne revealing that he's funding Batman, I hate that. I also hate that Dick Grayson's letting Commissioner Gordon use the Bat computer, but then they don't really say if Commissioner Gordon knows that Dick Grayson is Batman. Does he know? I don't know. I just think it's a huge can of worms. You just shouldn't call any attention to it, right? Like once you call attention to the fact that Bruce Wayne and Batman are connected, you can't call attention to it.
Unring that bell.
I have one small issue with the artwork. I generally found it very effective in setting the mood and all that. But there were like 2 or 3 like
Okay.
2-page spreads that had the author's name and like trademark like in the bottom of the spread.
Yeah.
Like he signed it, and it's just like that took me right out of the story. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, did he like put his name there at this 2-page spread because he's going to sell this piece at some comic book convention or something?
Mhm.
Possibly.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure he probably did, but yeah, like I said, it just took me out of the story, which I think is not a good thing.
What about, did anyone think that they would have preferred that it was Bruce Wayne over Dick Grayson, or did anyone mind that?
I like that it was Dick Grayson.
Yeah, I like the Dick Grayson part.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting inflection on the Batman story. It's the first time that it's the first Batman story I've read where someone else has taken up the cowl, which was redeeming.
I guess I'm agnostic.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about it. At the beginning of the book, I'm thinking, oh wow, Batman wouldn't, the usual Batman poses and the way his physical presence. He weighs more than Dick Grayson. He's just a bulkier kind of character. He's more a blunt instrument kind of type of thing. Dick Grayson, and then I began to appreciate it more because the way that he was drawn, like over the city, as if he were like flying on a trapeze or something like that. So I thought the artist did a great job in characterizing Dick Grayson's physical presence and showing how different it would be than Bruce Wayne.
I don't know. I think Dick Grayson's story in general, and especially like Dick Grayson becoming Batman, is like a little more compelling. I mean, like, I feel like Batman's story especially has like aged poorly. Like this rich dude who doesn't use his money to actually solve social problems, but to like beat like people up. But the idea of sort of like, I don't know, a kid who's sort of like taken in by this person and sort of that is like more compelling or more interesting, or I don't know, has potentially more complexity to it. As I'm reading, I'm on issue 3 now. As I'm reading, I'm liking that part of it.
Yeah, I like Bruce Wayne, but Dick Grayson, I think, is a great character on his own. Like, he's not as mission oriented. He's actually a human being who can have fun with life, and it's not just solely based on fighting crime. He's actually trying to do good in the world.
I like the joke. He flips off the light and it's like, what? Why didn't you react like that?
Right.
He's used to be disappearing normally.
That was great.
That was cute.
The other thing I did really appreciate is that for once they explained how the Joker gets out of Arkham Asylum.
I did like.
He just goes into Arkham Asylum and then 3 months later he's out. No explanation. This is like, no, we'll actually tell you this time.
What did you think of this Joker? I thought it was very different from others. Real creepy, but anybody else?
I thought he looked a little bit like Joe Biden.
Ooh, no.
Oh, why?
In the underground church, there are a couple.
But not. I get it. I see
I'm
it.
glad I wasn't the only one.
You think I cut up that woman? That's malarkey.
Oh man. I don't like his speech mannerisms in this book.
You don't like it? I mean,
I didn't like how he was, like how they made him talk in the book. like how he's like, it wasn't me. Like, oh, that was rough. But I really liked how he was messing with the doctor. That was fun.
Mhm.
Let me tell you a story. Like, I like that whole part. How he's trying to be like kind of whimsical while he was fucking with them. I just don't like. Yeah, that was it.
I'll say,
Very picturesque.
expecting the aviary park to be the most crucial location in the story, but it gets referenced several times.
Well, Robin.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I did notice. I was like, "What's with these birds that aren't in this area? Like, that's an African bird. Is this? Oh." And then they explain it a couple issues later. But yeah, they're like, "Yeah, there's these vultures." I was like, "I don't think these vultures. Where is this story taking place?" And then it's like 3 stories later. They did do a little bit of foreshadowing. I mean, I don't know. That was about it, actually.
Symbolism.
Yeah.
Also,
like-
question. So the stories with James Gordon Jr. and then there's all the stuff with Roadrunner and Tiger Shark and Zuko Lady. Are those connected at all? Because if they are, I did not find any connections.
I think wasn't there like kind of an info dump near the end where James like explained how it all tied together.
Yeah, he was using them.
Yeah, that's how he.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't find it super plausible. Like,
Yeah.
okay, now we have to tie everything up. But yeah.
It was kind of a red herring, but it was yeah, they were also getting the weapons from the Gothic Police Department.
Okay.
I'm subtracting a point from my score for lazily trying to connect two completely disconnected plot elements.
When he was using them, he was just exploiting the situation at hand. Like he wasn't to them in any way. It was more like this is more like a him sort of in the background watching and then waiting for his moment to strike, and less about actually tying everything together. I thought.
Yeah, and then it's also like Dick Grayson's angry with Zuko. He's like, "You manipulated me into what? Taking down a criminal? Like you're a vigilante. Like your moral high ground for." Oh, it was
No,
more.
but I mean, like, but they have like rules and stuff, right? Which I mean, I appreciate like how annoying it can be too, but like,
You okay?
I feel like they like that's in place so that you can differentiate Batman doing something from like other bad actors doing the same thing.
But
Right.
I meant like he's chiding her at the end of the issue, and it's like she didn't do. All she did was convince him to take out 2 criminals instead of 1. Like it doesn't seem like she did anything bad at all, and he's chiding her, and it's supposed to be like, oh, well, she was a bad person because she got these 2 outlaws taken care of that were harassing her, and I was like, okay.
Well, like, it's a lawful
not really.
character. What do you want?
He only took care of one though. The other one escaped, so he could come back. And his
Yeah.
point was that if you had told me sooner, I might have gone to him sooner and caught him. But instead, you didn't tell me at all, and now he's escaped.
Yeah, that's kind of how I interpret it too.
Well, she actively destroyed the camera footage so she
Yeah.
could direct him to Car Guy.
I'm with Keith on this one, and like also with Zuko, who was like, you're trespassing on my building. Like, shut up. And, like, I don't have a lot of empathy for Batman being like, I got used to take down bad guys. Like that's literally his existence. Except like usually he doesn't get played. But also I felt like Dick Grayson was pretty dumb, like throughout the entire arc.
That's how he is, though. He's just a lovable idiot.
He's not the world's greatest detective.
No, he is. He is the most flexible detective.
Dick Grayson is a himbo.
Yes, he is.
Dick Grayson
Yeah,
is
he
a
absolutely
himbo.
is.
I think maybe that was the point. Like he picks up the Batman's cowl, fails at just about everything except for catching James Gordon Jr. But even after all that, he still feels like he should be Batman. if you're not catching two villains and maybe letting the water supply get poisoned, he's still an optimist.
Yeah, he should be reflecting. He should be like, man, I really messed this up. I'd give myself a 2.5 out of 10 for this.
Yeah, I've enjoyed him at periods as Nightwing, but like, yeah, he was a bit of a himbo here. Which, like, fair. I mean, he's got a great butt. That's a thing.
Yeah, I felt like that's kind of his thing, though. He's like the himbo Batman. It's like, it is what it is.
That's the new series that DC is working on, Himbo Batman.
Coming to CW.
Well, that's like, he's a himbo.
They're actually doing a crossover event where everyone gets turned into himbos.
That's the future liberals want.
There's a Harley Quinn himbo.
Well, she has a gang of Harleys, and I think one of them is indeed a himbo. So there you go.
It's just a storyline focused on that guy.
I don't remember what triggered it, but there was a moment where I stopped and thought, he didn't actually go to school for any of this. This is all just on-the-job training. Like, he has no background in detective work.
Yeah, it's like a mentorship program, right?
He has like a GED at best.
Although no,
He's
he
lucky.
he was, I believe, like in his solo series, he's a cop, right? Wasn't that his cover identity?
Yeah, I think they made reference to that in the story that he had worked
Well, he's
as
in Bloodhaven. He's a cop.
a police detective or
Right.
something. Yeah.
To be fair, Batman doesn't have any detective training either. It's all self-taught.
Yeah.
Well, he went around the world and like trained with quote unquote masters or whatever, right?
Depending
That
on
was
which
the thing.
version.
Yeah, I was gonna say that depends. What kind of Batman are we talking here? There's a lot of different Batmans. That's the other thing. Like, Batman's kind of whatever you want to be. But Dick Grayson is definitely the himbo Batman.
It doesn't take a lot to be a better detective than the actual cops, so.
It's the world's greatest detective. The bar is pretty low.
I have a horrific story that's true to life about Detroit police and their level of
Fucked uppers.
yeah. I'll just cut to the ending, but this private investigator solves the crime and convinces the murderer and his girlfriend, who is the witness, to go to the Detroit police station to confess to the crime, to this murder. And the police turned them away because they didn't have an appointment. And so he had to come back 2 weeks later with the murderer and the murderer's girlfriend. And I was like, this has to be the most fucking persuasive private investigator ever, because how the guy did not flee the country, but he didn't. And that's actually who I was representing. It was actually the murderer. Was seeking representation.
Jesus Christ.
He was seeking representation and we declined. But
Oh.
yeah, no, that's private investigator showed up to the Detroit police station with the person to confess to a murder, and he had to reschedule. So.
Well, if there's one thing that's worse than crime, Keith, it's being slightly inconvenienced. So you know what? I'm proud of our boys in blue. I don't know about you.
They're too busy shelving all the rape kits they're not testing to man the front desk.
I had a question about the book since I wasn't able to finish it. How did that whale get into the office building?
They drag it.
It dragged it in.
Sorry,
In one
dragged it in?
piece, apparently.
Yeah. They just drag a whale into the building.
So they had some, like at the other end of the building, they had like a big garage door or something that could fit a whale through?
I feel like
I mean,
that's a thing that we should just not think about super hard. It
Yeah.
just,
So they didn't.
it got
Yeah,
dragged
Oh, wow.
in.
Like I was wondering how Evelyn was swallowed whole without any tooth marks.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was wondering about.
Mm.
She came out in pretty good shape there, didn't she?
Why did they even need to say that? We could just assume that they stuffed her down the throat after they were both dead. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
I
But they
mean,
specifically said she was eaten alive.
Sealed into a whale alive is terrifying. Like,
I don't know.
creepy.
Jonah survived.
Ugh.
Yeah, the esophagus of a whale is pretty small compared to a human being's body.
I'm like
I'm
tempted to say.
sorry. They have like flying cars and stuff like that. I gotta get over
Hmm.
trying to make the story realistic that way.
They specifically said
You have to open your third eye.
Yeah, maybe they took the whale into the bank, and it was like one of those sponge dinosaurs because they gave it the medicine, and maybe that's when the whale grew.
Yeah, it was dehydrated when they dragged
Mhm.
it in, right, Keith?
Yeah, I was also wondering. So everyone is showing up to work at 5 a.m. and there's glass doors, and they couldn't see the whale in the lobby.
I think that was one of my least favorite parts of the story. It just felt like he was trying to shove something in there that was dramatic.
Well, I do appreciate that it wasn't a giant squid.
Mhm.
Why would that be worse?
Because that would be like, what was that? Watchmen, right?
Yeah.
Watchmen was the giant
Oh,
squid at the
okay.
end.
All right.
like an awful Watchmen nod. I would have been furious as well.
can you imagine just walking by at like 4 a.m. and there's like 10 guys trying to shove an orca through a double door at a bank?
They get caught in the revolving door or something.
Yeah.
It's like, we can't get it out. What are we gonna do?
That would be amazing.
That story.
I like that more. Or maybe they disassembled the whale and assembled it back in the bank perfectly.
No, I think my dehydrated whale exclamation is just dead water.
That
Where
was
did the hose come from?
that was really obnoxious too, where they were like, I've looked at the body of the whale and it's covered in what was it? They were like, oh, it was awful. It was like that means rust and barnacles.
Oh, so it was captive. It was like
It was horrible. That was rough, man.
not only did this whale die horribly, but his whole life was terrible. Are we gonna get a back issue of the whale story?
Yeah, I found that 3-arc spread really definitely the worst part of the book, where Tiger Shark doesn't make any sense, and the Roadrunner, the dialogue was miserable. There was 2 pages of exposition for no reason.
Yeah, he was bad guy monologuing.
Does anyone think or know that if was that the plan all along to sort of pin it on James at the end, or is this Snyder sort of well, now I have to tie all of this together?
What do you mean pin it on James? Pin what on him?
Like he was like the mastermind behind all of it, or is it more like I had these 3 story arcs, now I have to tie them all together?
I think it was just tying them all together. I think they're just sort of 2 separate stories or 3 stories that were meant to just push Dick Grayson to his limits and see if he came out the other end the same Dick Grayson or a different Dick Grayson. At the end, he decides to keep being Batman. That's the way I saw it.
I didn't find the tie-up strong enough to imply that Snyder had considered it beforehand.
Because I feel like I would have been happy with okay, there's these 3 standalone stories, and then there's this Gordon son type thing happening in the background. Would have been fine for me.
James was involved in the auction and the Joker, not the Roadrunner or Tiger Shark.
Not the Tiger Shark. Not the Tiger Shark. All right.
Yeah, I'm reading through it, and they say that basically, his connection to the dealer was that he bought the Joker toxin from the dealer. So it's it's not the thinnest connection in the world, but it's
he was also there. He was behind Grayson when he got attacked. So maybe he tipped him off.
Yeah, that was implied. He was the one who told everyone that Batman was going to be there. What do you think of the color? I know this was published in black and white and in color. Did the color make a difference to anyone? Or
I read it in color. I enjoyed the colors, particularly in the back half. I thought the back half used colors very effectively.
Yeah, the second artist, Francesco Francavilla versus Jock. Jock does a lot in black and white, and I feel like Francesco was really good. Like that stuff was really striking.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I wish Francisco had expanded his palette a little bit more, because there were some scenes that were a little bit muddy when the borders of the panels were not super crisp. But generally, I only read it in color. I didn't see it that it was in black and white. But I can see, how did Jock's work translate to black and white? I feel like it would have been really, really flat.
It did. I sort of breezed through those pages, and yeah, it just looked like the uncolored pencil version of this book, not like Uzumaki, where he drew it purposely in black and white. This one just looked like very flat and not special.
Yeah, I wish I'd read it in all color, the whole thing.
Another question I have, I saw that this was, these were the last issues of, I think, post-crisis before New 52. My comic book event timelines are not great. But I felt like it was a really weak as a closing set. And I was just wondering if anyone else thought that it was like how it served to close that chapter of Batman.
I feel like this was a side, because this was happening in Detective Comics, I believe. But
Yeah.
I think like the main sort of Bat title at the time was either Batman and Robin or Batman Incorporated. So that was where like all of that action was happening.
Also, I don't think any of them knew. As far as I know, the creators did not know until at the very earliest 5 months ahead of time, because David Finch's Dark Knight #1 came out, and then 5 issues later it was canceled and rebooted at #1. So if Scott Snyder started this 12 months ahead, he didn't know when he started that this would be the end. So I think he said that they offered it to him. Oh, I think when he started writing Batman #1, he didn't even know it was Batman #1. It was just Batman. And then as he was writing Court of Owls, they're like, oh, by the way, this is going to be the new Batman #1. Like, oh, shit. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think they knew. That's why there's no closure, you know?
Yeah, and the funny thing, too, with the transition is, like, they picked and choose some story arcs to continue. So even though they rebooted, there were still, like, stories continuing into
Yes,
New 52.
especially in Grant Morrison stuff, right?
Right. Like
Yeah,
Green
and
Lantern.
James Gordon Jr. continued on in the New 52.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Come back.
I found it weird, like you said, Mike, and this followed up with Court of Owls, and I really liked that series. I thought that was good.
That was a great story.
Yes.
And so, like, I was really looking forward to Snyder on this, and I found it to not stand up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Alexander, what's the next question?
Let me see what I have to answer. Yes, but we can talk about Scott Snyder's sort of writing in general. I know I've read a lot of his work, and I know he uses a lot of metaphors. I'm pretty sure I think it's what they are, right? When he tries to connect a story from the past or some sort of urban myth with whatever's going on at the present, that'd be a metaphor, right? Am I wrong about that?
Not really. Not really.
It's not. Yeah, that's.
Allegory, maybe. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Are you talking about a flashback, or
not flashback? No, but like when he says when he's first talking about his circus acts and how you have to give it your all in Gotham, and then sort of
Allegory.
Yeah, so I never really know what to call it, but he uses it a lot.
Well, like,
he's using his history as a metaphor for Gotham.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
And this isn't so much about like his talent for doing that, but rather like he's not the first one to describe Gotham in that way. Like, it's this thing that is just gonna eat you up. But I'm just like, why would anyone want to live there? Like,
Yeah.
why would you want to live there? That
Yeah, but-
sounds. Fucking move to the suburbs. Why would you want to live there?
But isn't that the way people talk about New York too? Like,
Or Detroit.
or Detroit, right?
I don't know about Detroit, but like New York City, I have the same question. Like, it's like $2,000 a month, buddy. Why would you want to live there? I mean, come
So,
visit, but like,
right.
You make it up on dollar pizza slices.
yeah, I don't know if that's a good trade-off. I don't know.
It's my favorite pizza place right here, Sbarro.
But is it
My
really
favorite New York slice.
But is it really $1? I don't think it's $1.
Yeah,
No.
sometimes it is.
Some like when they throw it
Like
out?
when you go to the
Yeah.
place on the corner and you get a huge slice of New York pizza for $1.
Yeah, when you go to the place that says $1 outside.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
I remember when Tanya's Pizza used to be $1. I think it's like $2.10 now. That's inflation for you.
I was devastated to realize, I want to say New York City does not have free refills on pop. What the fuck is that? Like,
Because
even
it's
Subway.
hungry and it's gonna eat you, and you have to give it your
Mhm.
all,
They
right?
gave a tax. They put a tax on soda.
Yep.
Pop in New York City.
It's all
I'll
the
take my
Blasio's
business
fault.
elsewhere.
No, it's a cool setting. Like it's a cool place to read about, I think. But like given how it's sort of describing those metaphors, I always wonder like, why does anyone want to live here? Why do you want to live here? This
In
is
Gotham?
some crazy sauce.
I feel like it's this very sort of, I don't know, I don't quite want to say like conservative, but like for lack of a better word, it's this very like conservative interpretation of like what cities
This
are
is a
like. They're
bootstrap-
these
oh, okay.
dens of crime, and they're going to corrupt you, and they just have the absolute scum, and they're filled with criminals, like all this kind of shit, you know.
But I
don't
do
know.
think though, like I don't think Snyder's doing that, like with this other. It's sort of like kind of a like it's not. I don't think he paints Gotham that way. It's sort of more of a like, if you survive here, you'll survive anywhere. So good on you, right? But I'm like, see, I think you can build character better, and you don't have to live in Gotham. Like there's other ways to there's other ways to prove yourself, I guess is what I'm saying.
Are there gated communities in Gotham that don't experience any kind of crime and are completely oblivious to all of this?
Where
mean,
Bruce
Gateway
Wayne
Manor.
lives.
Where Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne lives, basically. Yeah.
Isn't that just on a hilltop on the outskirts of town?
Like in
Yes.
the suburbs.
Bruce Wayne is the ultimate NIMBY.
Also, you have to I think if if the city is bad, then there's not a lot of option for leaving, of like saving up money to move, and for your house doesn't have a lot of value compared to other places probably.
Yeah, think of like New Orleans, right? When that hurricane came through, so many people who lived there just didn't have the resources to leave.
Or Detroit. Yeah.
I mean, I think, especially like Gotham, I think something that I've always conceived Gotham as is that there's this huge gap between the rich and the poor. It
For sure. Yeah.
like it feels like, I don't know, and like Batman was created in like the 30s during the Depression, like that was sort of out there, like especially in the urban landscape. But yeah, even the character of like Bruce Wayne, hyper rich, but like in the city that's like full of squalor. And has there ever been anybody who's like focused on that in Batman?
On
Like
what?
just like the huge like income inequality in Gotham City, like the huge gap. I feel like the cartoon touched on it, but
like
not.
the socioeconomic factors that like contribute to its crime.
Yeah, Paul Denis wrote War on Crime. That's actually a really good look at Bruce Wayne figuring out that, I can do more as Bruce Wayne than I can do as Batman, making money.
But I feel like he does do, like, I think they depict him enough to establish, like, he does do stuff. Like, that's a thing that happens, but
You know what?
Don't focus on it because it's probably not entertaining. Like,
I think to be
Here's Bruce Wayne setting up a community center. How exciting!
Bruce Wayne, child trafficker.
But if you think about superheroes, no superhero after the 1930s Superman ever, I don't think, dealt with income equality. And, you know, like Mike Fritz, you remember a couple years ago, we read Action Comics #1, and we were talking about that, right? How he was dealing,
Yeah.
like Superman in the 30s was actually social issues. And every superhero since then, their solution is to just punch out bank robbers, you know? And I love superheroes, but when you get older, you realize these problems are a lot more complex than that. But I don't think most superheroes deal with it. The only other one I can think of is maybe Green Lantern, Green Arrow in the late 60s by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, where they actually tried to address some of these issues. I don't know if they were successful, but at least they tried.
I feel like the Authority does that in some
Of course,
way.
yeah. Now,
But
yeah,
I mean, like,
that's
kind
like
of in a very not so subtle way. But I mean, they do.
hmm
Doom Patrol. They kind of talk about like things aren't going well for a lot of people. The super villain's coming in. He's going to change things up. I don't know if that's a bad thing. They at least address that. Yeah, no, there's actually a Polygon had a issue which turned into a backdoor self-promotion thing by this comic book writer. But he's like, it was a whole history of comic books. You know, Superman fought landlords, you know, because they were exploiting their tenants. Wonder Woman did a lot of you know, fighting for rights for women. Captain Marvel, you know, also did a lot of social justice, and then Batman is kind of like, you know, essentially you follow the rules or I punch you out. You know, and after that, it's a long time before, you know, they're basically just enforcing the status quo. Yeah, you know, Alex, you were talking about like, you know, Scott Snyder like draws all these explicit metaphors. And I will say this book features so much like self-narration. Like, you know, in like this first story, most of this stuff is Dick Grayson just talking to himself. And you know, a lot of times it doesn't even have much to do with what's going on. It's just him moralizing throughout this, you know, whole book of just like, you know, he's moralizing about this awful, awful place, but it's like, it's Gotham City. It's not real. What are we supposed to be taking from this? You know, it's like that Batman's job is really hard. It's like, well, I mean, you made it hard. These are all like author created this situation. You know, I don't know.
Hey, Keith, I was actually thinking about that as I was reading the book, because I think one of Alex's questions was like something to do with themes or something, right? So I kind of like was clued into that at the very beginning, and I was trying to figure out, okay, so what is Snyder really trying to say with all of this? And it seemed, at least the beginning part of the book, and because I didn't finish, I can't say, but it seemed like he was really concentrating on the idea of, you know, how do we reconcile the darkness within ourselves? You know, the very, very first few pages where that kid like winds up like in the swimming pool, like eating that other kid as a crocodile. And I think, well, okay, well, maybe that's what's going on here, is he's really trying to explore the idea of an interior darkness, and how do we, like, you know, like I said, reconcile that or come to terms with it. And I didn't finish, but I saw like, wow, James Gordon, the son, is like, oh my God, that's like every parent's worst nightmare, right? It's like you have this darkness that's in your own family, and what do you do about that? So I thought he was exploring that, and I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, how do you deal with that ugliness that's, you know, buried inside of everybody, has at least a little bit. But like I said, I don't know what kind of conclusions he ever came to, or maybe it was just like, oh, I'll just explore the theme and I won't, you know, have any solutions.
That kind of, like, I think I agree with you in that it was a really interesting concept, but I wish it was handled a little better, because there's a lot of really deep exploration you can make there. Like, just like it freaks me out to think about, like, I never want children, and a big part of that is because of the fucking Menendez brothers. And just like the thought of like, what if I have a child that just fucking hates me and murders me and is just like an awful human being? And I think that's something very interesting that could have been more further explored.
I mean, if you want to analyze that darkness within, just think about the fact that we're having to debate whether our country will accept an election or not. I mean, we're all teetering on the edge of darkness, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we're just a few steps away from fascism in this country ourselves, so.
We're already there.
But,
Why not now?
But yeah, there was
The fascists were in the house the whole time.
Joe Biden will save us all. Don't worry.
Hmm.
I want to talk about real life. This is why all I read are manga and comic books.
But if you want a really good, there's a book, and then they turned it into a movie. You can talk about Kevin.
Oh, I've heard good things about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
That's a good one. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and you know, I recommend it. It deals with a lot that's similar to this. And
On a similar note, I just finished reading the manga Monster before this, which is also like very similar. If anybody knows about it,
I think how it ends, like how he wraps it up, Mike, to your because you didn't finish it. I think it sort of leaves it with Dick Grayson and Gordon. It's the two different kind of people. Like Dick Grayson just sort of feels like he has to fight against all the evil and darkness in the world, and Gordon is more like accepts it and just sort of feels run down by it, and he might eventually just sort of collapse under it. That's how I saw it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I was pretty surprised that he shot his son like twice with his back to him, unarmed, but I guess that's what cops do.
oh, that's just how they show love. They
Hey.
shoot you in the leg.
you know, there was a meme. It was like, you know, cops. 40% of cops have domestic violence, and it's like 40% of cops have reported domestic violence. So, yeah.
At the end, did he have a knife in his eye?
Yeah.
Is that what that
Barbara
was?
stabbed him. Yes.
Because the art was wasn't quite sure.
Like next to the eyeball. Chill.
No permanent damage though.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
I like
Oh.
this music.
Oh, I hated that song.
I want one.
Dude, fat finger, go.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Did he jumpstart that car with a bat taser?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the
that's
feasibility
it.
of that?
It's the same feasibility as a flying Batmobile.
Mm.
Grounded, yes.
Should we start wrapping up here, or
Missing question?
Sure.
unless you've still got some left, Alexander?
I mean, I think we've kind of talked about all the things that I wanted to talk about personally. But if anybody else has anything, then yeah, I'm wrapping it up if no one else wants to. All right, yeah. So I'm gonna stick with my 9. I still enjoy it. I'm glad we had this discussion, and I'm happy to hear all your opinions. Patrick?
I'll bump it up to an 8. It was a good time was had by me in reading it. So, Carlos, you just
I made it about halfway through. I'm going to, I think it's moving towards a 6 or a 7. Like, I don't know. It's not something I would normally read, but I think it's better than the average Batman story. So That's a 6 or a 7. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll stick with an 8 and just say I would like the next Batman movie to involve, detectivizing a serial killer instead of big superpowers. But yeah, I'll stick with an 8.
Detectivizing.
It's a word.
Okay.
I've heard that's what they're going for with the RPAT Batman, so we'll see.
Oliver, you're next.
Oh, all right. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I had fun reading it. I am actually going to lower my score because when I came into the conversation, I was thinking about kind of the back half, and I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. I like that. And then as we were going through the conversation, I was remembering the stuff in the first half that didn't really work so well, and I was like, oh yeah, that was there too, huh? And yeah, I mean, I still had fun reading those parts, but yeah, it's just a lot of it's just a little disconnected, and the earlier stuff doesn't really work as well. So I think I'm kind of landing on a 7 here. But Michael.
I'm gonna stick with I think I said 8. I do really dislike the art of Jock, and in fact, I don't even know why he's a professional artist, let alone on a Batman story. But that's fine. The other guy is much better.
Snap.
Yeah, and Scott Snyder he's a really good writer. Like I said, his stuff gets weaker as it goes, but this is still peak Snyder. And yeah, I think it would make a great low-key Batman movie for sure. So, Carlos?
I already went.
Oh, you already went. Okay. Who hasn't gone yet? Keith? Oh, Juniper? Okay.
I really appreciate the discussion. It actually solidified my score, and I'm going to drop to a 2. So, thank you all for that. Mike Prime?
I'm going to keep it 7.5. I don't know if I'm going to finish it though. I got to be honest. The conversation was good. I appreciate that, but once I found out how I was only reading it to find out how that whale got in the lobby of the. Yeah. All right, Keith.
I will agree with Oliver that the back half is definitely stronger than the first half. I gave it a 5, and I'll stick it at 5. It's it's a rough story for a lot of it, and the artwork is so back and forth. I mean, I think at one point it even switches in the middle of an issue, like after a few pages.
Your art?
Whatever it was trying to accomplish, it did not. But it's you want other Batman stories, The Long Halloween. Patrick mentioned Arkham Asylum, Year One.
Year One for sure.
There were some I forgot in Legends of the Dark Knight, there were some really strong writers in that run. You got Warren Ellis in there, and Grant Morrison wrote Legends of the Dark Knight too. There were some really good runs in there.
And then
that's what I'm the most familiar with, because people were like, "That's the most like the comic books." That's the most like the cartoon. I'm like, well, that's my favorite kind of Batman, so I'll just read that.
Yeah. But yeah, they actually, Warren Ellis is doing the Batman's Grave right now, and I don't know how it gets towards later issues, but in the first issues, he does talk about you're just beating up people who, if they could do anything else, they wouldn't be criminals. They at least address it. It was. I mean, there's a lot of Batman that just isn't very good.
There's a lot of bad Batman, but the Legends of the Dark Knight had some really, really strong runs in it and some really strong writers. That's what got me really into Batman.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
But yeah, I think even Scott Snyder's later The Court of Owls, I thought was a better Batman story.
Really?
There's also just as much narration in that one too, where he's just talking to himself about what Gotham means as a city. This kind of solidified it, that I was like, well, maybe I'm
guys.
too harsh.
Yeah, I'll stay with my initial picks because I think who was it? Was it Carlos said that it's better than the average Batman? So yeah, better than the average Batman. I like talking about it. That was really interesting, and I do think there is a lot of history of Batman that was in the story, which is always fun when comics address the history. And I did appreciate finally getting to read Grayson Batman. And
Uncle Mike, can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Who hasn't gone?
So you can.
I think that's everybody.
All right.
They can see you now.
Yeah, thank you for selecting.
yeah, we don't have off of the.
Me, Uncle Mike, it's very hard to find me.
Yeah.
I do have one question. Sean,
Hmm?
your the chair that you're sitting in,
Hmm.
is it like red pinstriping
Yep.
on that chair? That reminds me of the 1966 Batman Batmobile.
Oh, yeah.
Was that your intent?
That's why I bought it.
The not a lot of people know this, but the 1960s Batman was also a gamer.
Hmm.
I
In a different sense, though, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, for whatever reason, the trend in gamer chairs is they take racing car seats and put them on rollerbacks. And what's really great is it makes even less sense because I have one and it will do like 180-degree lean back. You know, like your chair can lean back a little bit. Mine leans back 180 degrees. If I ever do that, because I'll do that just to show that I can do it, and then I fall backwards because chairs shouldn't work like that.
Keith, with us gamers, sometimes our reflexes are so fast and so strong. We see gunfire coming at us. We immediately gotta dodge out of the way. It's just pure instinct.
I wish
Can't
it
fight
had a seatbelt because I slide in it so much that I pretty much always just sit like this, and it's really bad for my posture. But
It's actually with the holes over your shoulder. Those are a
Yeah.
callback to the racing car because it would have
Yeah, the 4-point.
4-point.
Yeah.
so I could get bungee cords, I guess.
Put a Batman seat.
Amazing. This bungee cord. Cat, quick, bungee cord me in. I'm sliding down.
Yeah, you can see your butt crack.
That would be more of a Wonder Woman thing, though, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Or like
Sorry.
sew Velcro onto all your pants.
Yeah.
And just Velcro yourself to the chair.
I've Googled it, and people suggest getting a footstool for your feet so your legs will have the perfect angle.
it's too normal.
Like a squatty potty.
Yep.
All right. So next month on the December 19th, we have a book called Good Talk, a memoir in conversations. Jeff Chapman is supposed to be our guest host.
Awesome.
Jeff, you better show up.
Yep.
So it's called
I
Good
will
Talks.
What's the
Good
date on that,
talk.
Mike?
December 19th, the Saturday before Christmas.
Cool.
I will send an email to Jeff to remind him.
Great. All right, I guess we'll do, since this is the end, we'll do the little wrap up, right? We'll do the applause like we always do. Thank you everybody for coming tonight, for joining us. That was Batman Black Mirror.